What's up, everybody? It is the Best Bot Kid Smooth, and I am back with another video. So, rumor has it that Xbox is about to do another major FPS boost update, but the numbers are looking astronomical. You see what Cole is tweeting. You see what Tom Warren put on his Instagram. Tom Warren says 50 plus. Colt says 70. Somebody's right, but when? When exactly is this happening? Because remember, just a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, we got EA games, and they gave us 13, which was the biggest drop we got since this whole thing started. You know, the first rollout was only 5 games, 2 Ubisoft games, and some 3 other random games. The second major push was the Bethesda acquisition, so we got like 5-6 Bethesda games that were FPS boosted, which included Skyrim, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Prey, which is probably the most promising because it retained its Xbox One X enhancements, Skyrim, which is 4K 60 now, on the Series X and whatnot. So we got Bethesda, and then EA, of course, with they were pretty much the 120 hertz update, because luckily EA has a lot of games already running at 60 frames per second on current gen consoles, so the Series X has to brute force those things up to 120. So a lot of their games were getting 120 hertz out of them, and now we're about to get a ton more. Now, my thing is, what could these games be? 70 plus? I mean, I think the 70 plus is including. I think 70 plus would be all FPS boosted games to date. I don't think we're going to get like a 74 game update just randomly next week. I think Tom Warren's 50 plus is probably accurate, because I think it will be 50 plus new games. People, the term new games, newly boosted games will be 50 plus, and then when you add that plus what we already have over the last 3 months, we're going to get about like 75 games for sure. Now, what games are getting FPS boosted? What do I want to see FPS boosted? Now, you guys, if you follow me on Twitter, hey, I just passed 10,000 followers on Twitter. So if you are not a part of that 10,000, you should get on it. But you guys know I have a wish list. This wish list is updated as FPS boost is updated. Now, I'm curious of how many games I'm going to be removing off this wish list after next week. So, you guys know, big fan of the Assassin's Creed franchises. Would love to see Origins and Odyssey, but the one that's more likely to happen is probably the Assassin's Creed Remastered and Assassin's Creed Unity, because since technically all Xbox have to do is tap into the original code. They don't have to change resolution. All they are doing is tapping into the code. I think that's probably the easiest one to do. Right now, the only way to get Assassin's Creed Unity at 60 frames per second right now on your Xbox Series X is if you still have the disc and you play without the update, which stabilizes it up at 30. But I think Assassin's Creed Unity is the more likely to get boosted to FPS, get boosted to 60 frames per second, and then probably the Ezio collection, because those are older games and we could get those games at their, proper resolutions. I think they're 4K or 1080p. I don't know if they enhance the Ezio collection, but if they have, we're gonna get those at their max resolution, at their max frame rate at 60 frames per second. That's what I expect to be a part of this list. I do expect Ubisoft to be a lot of Ubisoft titles this time around, because the first batch we only got 2 games, and we know Xbox and Ubisoft are pretty close. We know Xbox has the marketing deal for Far Cry 6, and we know Xbox had the marketing deal for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and Ubisoft is going to be a big part of Xbox and Xbox Game Pass later this year. So I expect quite a few Ubisoft games to go in this list. So maybe some of the less demanding Assassin's Creeds. I would love to see Origins and Odyssey, but maybe Unity, Syndicate, and Ezio Collection. That would be good enough until they do something with Odyssey and Origins. Far Cry, ever since when the first batch of games that came out, we had Far Cry 4 was in the first batch of FPS boost games, and as soon as we saw that, we was like, okay, we want Far Cry 5. Far Cry 5, we know, is a beautiful game, is obviously the most up-to-date game, and this game is native 4K on the Xbox One X and Series X at 30 frames per second. Now, what can they do with FPS boost? Can they take that same game and make it 60 in FPS boosted to 60 frames per second? Looking at the engine and how some of the games they have to kind of disable that, we're probably going to get the 1080p 900p version at 60 frames per second, but good try. But I do expect to see Far Cry 5 on that list some way, somehow. How they do it, I don't know. And then I do expect the older Far Cry game, Far Cry Primal. Since they got Far Cry 4 to work, we know for sure Far Cry Primal is going to work, because Far Cry Primal is Far Cry 4 reskinned. I mean, it's the same map and everything. It's just reskinned in prehistoric time. So trust me, Far Cry 4 will be FPS boosted. I'm willing to bet money on that. Far Cry Primal and maybe Far Cry 5. Now, you guys know I want some Halo 5 FPS boosted to 120 frames per second. That would be great, because they need to start doing their first party titles, like Crackdown 3 could use it, Recore could use it, 60 frames per second, 1440p, the definitive edition, especially for those who are without a PlayStation 5 who cannot access Returnal. Let's revisit Recore at 60 frames per second. Now, you guys follow me on Twitter, you know I've been tweeting about this, and I'm going to speak into existence. Recore, 60 frames per second as soon as next week. Kill a little bit of that Returnal hype. You know what I mean? But can we get Halo 5 Guardians at 120 frames? I know they're working hard on Halo Infinite. There's technically nothing wrong with Halo 5. It's 4K 60 with HDR, everything. It runs fine. Would it be nice to have it 120? Of course. But there's another Halo game that they could actually do and boost up, and that's Halo Wars 2. We can get that at 60 frames per second. I'm pretty sure that might be on a list, along with like some, for shit's sakes, Spartan Assault. They can get that up to 120 frames per second. And if that's the case, I definitely would re-download Halo Spartan Assault if they're going to be pushing that game at 120 hertz. But if they get the trifecta, Halo 5, Halo Wars 2, and Spartan Assault, that would be great. But I think Halo Wars 2 will make some people happy. Shout out to Gaming Addict. He's a big fan of that game. I'll do Spartan Assault. That's a game that I can just play chill. 120 frames per second. I'm not going to complain. What about who else? EA still got a couple of games. I know they're going to probably add another. I think Hardline wasn't a part of that 13 FPS boost. I think they add that. I think, remember, Dragon Age Inquisition was supposed to be a part of the first batch, but they ran into some troubles. Maybe they came across a fix, Dragon Age Inquisition. I mean, there's a chance Deus Ex Human Mankind, people want that game boosted to FPS boost. I don't have the game, that's why it's not on my list. I would play Tomb Raider, all three of them. The trilogy just came out. They did not do any special enhancements of it. Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Rise of Tomb Raider both have performance modes. They both has performance mode, but they reduced the resolution to 1080p to get, an average of 48 to 52 frames per second on those games, because none of those games are completely locked in their performance mode. So if we get Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider locked 60 in their 4K mode, I think Shadow of the Tomb Raider itself doesn't I think they went with a dynamic, I forgot what they opted for in Shadow of the Tomb Raider. It still has a performance mode, but I think we'll be able to retain the Xbox One X version at 60 frames per second. It's no problem with FPS boost on. And Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, this game was the start of that new trilogy. I expect that to get FPS boosted as well. Rise of the Tomb Raider, that's the one that I really want, because that is my favorite of the series. Red Dead Redemption, not sure. Obviously, Rise, we would like that. We got some Crytek games. We've already seen Crytek in the works. We got Prey, which is running on a Cry engine, and maybe Homefront Revolution could use an FPS boost. We know EA's in the house, so Anthem at 60 frames per second. My thing about Anthem, the game is I think 4K 30 on Xbox One X. Will it do 4K 60 with FPS boost, or is it going to be that Xbox One 1080p 900p 60 with FPS boost? We got to see how that goes, and I don't know if it's going to be even worth the effort for Xbox to do it, being that the game has, I guess, no players. But it's EA. The game is already in the Game Pass and EA Play, so I think they're gonna try to flood get those games out the way, since they are already accessible. But there's also so many games that could be FPS boosted. Would it Metro? I mean, I know they're not gonna do the the newest one, which is I think Metro Exodus. They're not going to do that for the simple fact that the proper next gen version is coming out this year, and Digital Foundry just got to review the PC version. So I expect the little cross-gen version that came out in like 2015. I think Redux and Last Light. I think, or well, the bundle was called Metro Redux. It was 2033 and Last Light. Those games will likely get FPS boosted, and some of those cases, I think Last Light was already 60 frames on last gen, so that could get FPS boosted to 120. And who knows what they do with 2033, but that should be interesting. Will we get an FPS boost for Doom? No. Sunset Overdrive, 70 plus games. There's a lot to choose from. What do you think is going to happen? But I gave you guys what I think is going to happen for sure. Recore, because I said so. We're gonna get something with Halo. Xbox have to show their first party. There's gonna be some first party games that get that FPS boost love. Some first party games, because they haven't done it thus far. They haven't done not one up until this point. And I'd like to see Crackdown 3. Recourse happening for sure. But in terms of like publishers, I think Ubisoft is going to be hit big. EA's coming big. We're going to get some more Bethesda titles that go into service. Tomb Raider, and I expect some other few surprises. But otherwise, the rest of it's probably going to be like some Lego stuff. So let me know your thoughts. FPS boost, 70 plus games, likely next week. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Peace.